Hello and welcome to another episode of The Framework of Tomorrow. This is episode 25, and I am your host, Keegan Goldfarb. Today I'm going to be talking about the current situation the United States is in, and by going through an article written by the New York Times called On the Future, Americans Can Agree It Doesn't Look Good. But before I get into that today, I want to talk about our sponsor, not only on The Framework of Tomorrow, this show that you are listening to, but also on the network I am a part of called rallynetwork.net. Well, it's called Rally Network, but you can check us out on rallynetwork.net. Our sponsor is Ashley Luann K. If you are pursuing a higher education or want insight on life as a nurse, go and check out Ashley Luann K. at the Minnesota Nurse on Instagram. Like I said, that's at the Minnesota Nurse on Instagram. You should definitely go follow her and check out some of the cool giveaways she's doing. And yes, go and do that. So today, I'm going to be talking about kind of the current situation the United States is in and what people think about it and what impacts it is making on Americans. So first off, I'm going to start off with the confusion Americans are feeling. So a lot of Americans, including myself, I kind of wrote this whole entire thing, not only basing it off of this New York Times article, but kind of how I'm feeling as well, because it's a very confusing time right now. And I kind of want to walk through what's going on, because just to process it, not only for myself, but hopefully this helps you process what's kind of going on in the United States as well, if you are a resident here in the United States. So number one, we're starting off with the confusion of what is going on. So many Americans are not only struggling with the pandemic that's going on, because that's a major thing that's going on as well, but the politics in America are kind of out of control. Not only did I think that, but also New York Times agrees with this as well. So they talked to many different people in this article, and starting off with the first one, we're going to start off with someone named Miss Cabrera. She is it said in the article, it says she's a self-identified strong Democrat and a Latina. Also expects that, this is when they were asking about whether or not Trump is going to be reelected. She suspects that he is going to be reelected. Miss Cabrera, 36 years old, has little hope that the country will turn around. I don't think people are too messed up. I think people are too messed up right now, she said. I don't think it matters who is president. So she thinks that it doesn't matter who is president right now, and she claims she is a strong Democrat. And honestly, I would agree with her. And I would say I'm pretty kind of in the middle. I'm probably more leaning on the right, but I would agree with what she is saying. I really don't think, with the choices that we have right now, it doesn't matter, because it's going to be the same situation. And it's not like everything's going to instantly change depending on who becomes president. Yeah, I don't want to get too political, but obviously that's what we're talking about. So yeah, that's what she says. I don't think it matters who is president, and honestly, I kind of agree with her on that note. But yeah, so 61% of voters, and a lot of people agree with this as well. It's not just me and her. A lot of people in this country agree with this as well. So 61% of voters in April were optimistic of where our country is heading. Now, 80% of voters believe the country is kind of spiraling out of control. Like I said, I would also kind of agree with that, because politics are kind of going nuts on both sides of the spectrum. Politics in general are just going nuts. There's a lot of political unrest, which actually is kind of tying into our past as Americans. So this is kind of a colliding of the past, I kind of called it. So we have a combination of not only the 1930s, like the Great Depression in the 1930s, the political unrest of the 60s, and then on top of that, there's a pandemic. So this is kind of a triple whammy. So if you are feeling kind of how I am feeling, and kind of a lot of Americans are feeling, that there's just like a lot of uncertainty with what's going on in our country, and everyone is just really, we're getting impacted in a lot of negative ways through this. Honestly, I think personally, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but I kind of want to talk about what I think is going to have to happen, and a lot of people are just going to have to like move past politics, because that is a big divide in our country right now. And I have a lot of friends who we probably wouldn't agree that much politically, but we're still really good friends. And I think that's what it really needs to go back to and continue to be for a lot of people, because a lot of people they're like, oh, you're on the other side of the spectrum, I'm going to yell in your face. And both sides are doing it. It's not just one side. And it's really unfortunate, and it's kind of sad that if you have a different political view than someone else, like people get so mad at each other, and it's really sad. I've seen it personally in my own life when I've personally kind of said some things about like what I think in politics, and I haven't seen it a lot, but I've seen it in some people where they start to get really defensive and they're like, how could you look at it that way? There's these facts and these facts and these facts. And it's like, can we just agree to disagree? Like, honestly, like it's pretty sad. But anyway, so the combination of the 1930s and 1960s, this kind of converging of the crises, said Mena Bose. I think I'm saying that right. I don't think I'm saying that right. The director of the Peter S. Calico Center for the Study of American Presidency at the Hofstra University. I don't know why I said that with a German accent, but she says, I'm sorry, I don't know if this is a girl or guy. They said, I am not sure there is an exact parallel, particularly given with the rise of social media and how much easier it is to denigrate and attack than it is to have the kinds of thoughtful, hard conversations that are needed. This is what I'm talking about. There is a lot of hard conversations that are needed, and a lot of the times on both sides of the spectrum here, some people are trying to have those hard conversations, and it's just being shut down because both sides, including some of our major people actually the major people in politics, it's really the small people that are trying to have conversations, but the major people in politics right now, like the big heads, are just shutting the other side down immediately when they try to talk about anything remotely trying to help to your side. They're like, oh, we disagree politically, so I don't even want to have this conversation. Blah, 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 fake news, you're dumb, racist. That's kind of what's going on. It's pretty sad. So what is the impact of Americans going on here? So the impact of Americans has actually been extremely detrimental, which does not surprise me because I have personally experienced this as well. So a third of Americans were showing signs of clinical anxiety or depression at the end of April, according to an emergency weekly survey of American households carried out by the Census Bureau to measure the pandemic's effects. In early May, half of those surveyed said they felt down, depressed, or hopeless, which is double the number who responded that way in the 2014 national survey. So there is a major, and I know a lot of friends who are going through a lot of like depression and anxiety. I personally had some anxiety and stuff about everything that's going on right now. And there is a major impact on what is going on. And honestly, it kind of makes you think about like what's going to happen to the generation that comes out of it. So like I'm thinking, like I'm kind of struggling with this, but I'm thinking like my little sister who is she's 9. I'm like, wow, what do you think? Like, what do you think that's going on, kind of in the world right now? Like, how confusing is that for a 9-year-old? And honestly, I mean, it's confusing for me. And it's like, and I'm 19, and it's still confusing. And I don't know. There's a lot of things that I don't understand. Why people just can't agree on stuff and try to, I guess, make bridges and talk about that. So what do we think? What does people think? According to this New York Times article, what do they think the future holds? So some people believe it can be healed. Mr. Smith said, we're living in a world of uncertainty right now with the pandemic and the powers that be not having the answers. Said Mr. Smith, 58, who is black. I don't know why they have to say their skin color. It's left people with a mindset of uncertainty. We need to come up with the cure so that America can get back to being America, which I 100% agree with. America does need, well, I guess this is kind of an American thing that's going on right now anyway, but we do need to get back to being America, which is being an example to other countries on why we are a free country and we should not be divided. We should be an example to other countries because we are incredibly blessed to be in America. And considering how incredibly blessed we are, we should be helping out other countries, which we have in the past, but we should really be helping out other countries and being an example instead of kind of being a joke, which I think is kind of what's happening with the world right now. They're like, oh, America's kind of a joke now because they're handling everything horribly. So, yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Mr. Smith. We do need to get back to being America. Others say, I don't feel like we have a handle on it, said Miss Jeddies, who is white. I don't feel that we are going to be able to go back to normal life ever. That's kind of pessimistic, but I mean that's her viewpoint on it, which is I could be fair because there's a lot of crazy stuff and it's hard to see right now us ever going back to normal because it's just been nuts. It feels like it's been like this forever and it's crazy. So yeah. Some have hope in it. So a lot of people are overreacting, said Mr. Girigari, it's an Italian last name, I don't know, who is white, said as he walked through Rittenhouse Square, a wealthy area, we've been through tough times and people thought it was the end of the world, but people come through. So what this guy is saying, which I also agree on, because we've seen this a lot on, the world has been through some struggling times, some hard times, and people always do come through. And I think that's a good way to look at it, that I think as long as we come together and actually come together, then I think we can get through this. But as of right now, we are not coming together. And I mean, some Americans are, but as a majority, I guess as the media is portraying it, a lot of people aren't, which the media kind of needs to stop that because that's just making it worse. But that's a whole different episode. I could do a whole episode on the media right now. And some agree to disagree. So the protests in Milwaukee have left Mr. Miranda, who moved from Puerto Rico 9 years ago, feeling unsafe. Though he strongly disliked Mr. Trump's labeling of protesters as terrorists and his desire to deploy federal troops to cities, he grades Mr. Trump's response on the coronavirus as so-so. But he may still support the president, calling him ruthless in a good way. I don't want to be on his side, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend, Mr. Miranda said. The enemy is the riots and COVID-19 and whatever else is going on in the government they aren't telling us. So I think that's a lot of people's perspective on what's kind of going on. A lot of people don't necessarily like Trump or agree with Trump, but he is being ruthless in a good way. I guess that's the only way to explain it. He's very, aggressive on it, and he's not going to let anyone, I guess, I don't really know how to explain it, but I 100% agree with kind of what this guy's saying. He is kind of being ruthless in a good way. And that's kind of what we need right now, to be completely honest. And back to the quote from Miss Cabrera on what she said. She expects that he will be reelected, but has little hope that the country... let's turn around. What did she say? Oh, she said, I don't think it matters who's president. I 100% agree. I think we just need somebody who's going to stand up, because it doesn't matter who the person is necessarily on who it is. It's just... it matters that we have a leader. So, I mean, I guess it kind of matters. But as long as they can lead a country, and I guess be a leader is what we really, really need. And when it comes to the end of the day, it also comes down to Americans in general, kind of reaching out to their neighbors and everyone else, changing their behavior on stuff like that. Because it's not going to be one person that's going to be able to change everything. It starts with us. It starts with smaller people. It starts with you going and talking to your neighbor. If you don't agree with them politically, just have a conversation with them. It doesn't have to be about politics. It could be about your porch or your dogs, or, you could have them over, play some board games. It doesn't have to, politics is such a main thing in people's lives now that people talk about. And it doesn't have to be a divide. You don't have to have that conversation of, I mean, you can have that conversation. I'm not saying just completely blow it off. You can have that conversation if you want. Just be respectable about it. And If you agree, if you disagree, just agree to disagree. That's all it has to be. It doesn't have to be a hard, it doesn't have to be, wow, I can't talk to that person anymore. It comes to the same thing with religion. A lot of people are like this with the religion as well. I grew up in a Baptist evangelical household, and I still consider myself evangelical today. And a lot of people I have seen, I guess, growing up and stuff like that, was it's like, oh, they're Catholic or Lutheran, we can't talk to them. I guess they're not specifically saying we can't talk to them, but it's kind of like implied. And it's kind of the same way with politics. You can't be like that. And I've had a lot of friends who aren't in the same religion or agree with the same stuff on a religion-based thing, and that's okay. And we've been friends. My best friend, we don't agree theologically on a lot of stuff when it comes to religion, but he's still my best friend, and we've been friends for I think it's been 9 years now. It's been forever. And we went through middle school and high school together, and now we're going through college together. And I think that's kind of what it has to come down to. It really does. It really has to come down to that. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I want to get to my random history fact of the day. I don't want to completely get rid of that. But I really hope you enjoyed kind of listening to me go through this New York Times article. And I hope you have some similar feelings on the we need to agree to disagree and we need to be friends again. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to share and talk about on using kind of the history, of other times, and kind of what we're talking about this. So the random history fact of the day. So this one, it pulls from Martin Luther King. So Martin Luther King actually received, he had a doctorate in systematic theology, which is it's really cool. After earning a divinity degree from Pennsylvania's Crosser Theological Seminary, King attended graduate school at Boston University, where he received his PhD degree in 1955. The title of his dissertation was a comparison of the conceptions of God in the thinking of Paul Tillich and Henry Nelson Weeman, which is really cool. I had no idea he had a degree or a doctorate in systematic theology. That's really, really cool. So yeah, I hope you really enjoyed this episode in listening to kind of what's going on, and that you aren't alone in this crazy, crazy, crazy time of America. Go reach out to your friends and family. If you are struggling, honestly, you can send me a DM too at the Framework of Tomorrow on Instagram. We can talk about this as well. I'd be glad to be there for you. Send me thoughts and questions at the Framework of Tomorrow on Instagram, Gmail. You can find me at YouTube now, the Framework of Tomorrow. You can find me on Twitter, which is, I think it's under TFOT_podcast. I think that's what it is. That's just an abbreviation of the Framework of Tomorrow. Make sure to rate me 5 stars on iTunes. That really, really, really helps me out. I'll start you at the beginning of my episode. I actually have to go check that because I haven't checked iTunes in a while. I upload every Monday and Wednesday at 5 a.m. Have a great rest of your day, and make sure to tune in on Wednesday for another fantastic episode of the Framework of Tomorrow.